It's always nice to take a break from all the other topics and talk about Death Stranding, the enigma of a game that continues to boggle minds. Last we heard of it, Kojima revealed some brand new characters during Tokyo Game Show 2018, and even showed some new footage of the man in the golden mask, who we now know is played by none other than Troy Baker, with who Kojima worked with in the past when Troy played Ocelot in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Troy's role in Death Stranding was kept under wraps for quite a while now, until one of the actors by accident posted a photo of him in the performance capture studio when they weren't supposed to. But the cat's finally out of the bag for real now, which means Troy is able to talk a little bit about it. That's exactly what he did when he attended Argentina Game Show 2018 earlier this month, where he participated in a Q&A panel where fans asked him questions about his role in Death Stranding, and Troy had some interesting albeit vague information to share. He began by talking about keeping his role in the game a secret, stating the following.
I can finally say that I'm in it, there's that. That was a fun secret to keep after somebody posted a picture of me on set with Norman. I play, they haven't announced the character's name, so the man in the golden mask. Death Stranding. Almost got you. Yeah, man, this close, tricky bastard.
So we know that his character is currently known as the Man in the Golden Mask, but it would also seem as though he has a proper name, one that Troy almost disclosed before having to stop himself. Character names is one thing that Kojima is still keeping very secret for some reason, with the only one we currently know being Sam. Everyone else we simply know as that character modeled after Guillermo del Toro, or that character played by Mads Mikkelsen, Lea Seydoux, Lindsay Wagner, or Tom Earl Jenkins. Though I'm sure more information on that front will be released as we approach the game's release date, unless Kojima has a very specific reason to keep characters' names secret, which may very well be a possibility. Next up, Troy talked a bit about what it was like to work on the project and with Norman Reedus before discussing the scale of the game.
Norman and I shot for about 2 weeks on it. He's super rad. He's really throwing his all into this game. He's got an amazing work ethic. We had some interesting scenes together that you guys have not even begun. It's a huge game. The scope of the game is huge. If you know anything about Kojima, he doesn't do small. It's weird and it's big.
So as far as Troy Baker's participation in the project goes, it looks like shooting lasted for about 2 weeks, which probably means that the Man in the Golden Mask may not be as pivotal to the storyline as some of the other key characters, whose actors have been shooting for much longer. Or at the very least, it looks like Troy Baker's character may not be featured in as many cutscenes as others. The way I see it, Troy's character is likely going to be one of the game's major bosses, and there's probably going to be a decent amount of banter between him and Sam before finally being defeated and or killed. Troy did briefly discuss how he had some interesting scenes with Norman that he had to stop himself from describing further.
We had some interesting scenes together that you guys have not even begun. It's a huge game.
And based on his tone, some of these scenes are apparently pretty bizarre. Also interesting to notice how he kept emphasizing what a huge game this is going to be. We already know that it's going to be an open world game, and the E3 2018 gameplay tease did give us a glimpse of just how expansive the world is going to be. But Troy really seems to be taken aback by how big the game is, and it's not hard to believe that Death Stranding might be Kojima's biggest game yet, even bigger than Phantom Pain. More important for me though is what you actually get to do within a huge open world, which we still don't know much about. Obviously, one aspect of gameplay will involve delivering packages in a ravaged post-apocalyptic landscape, and the E3 2018 trailer does briefly show Sam getting ready to use a rifle. But beyond that, we haven't seen much else. Some people are worried that the game might end up being pretty boring based on what little we have seen, but I have no doubt that we're only scratching the surface when it comes to what Death Stranding offers as far as gameplay is concerned, and that there is still much more that we haven't seen or know about. If I were you, I'd hold out for a proper and more extensive gameplay showcase before resorting to final judgment. Moving on, Troy shared some insight he learned about Death Stranding's conceptualization from Kojima himself.
And it's something that I was fascinated to know this, and I hope it's okay that I said entire game in his head for like 2 years. Some ridiculous amount of time. I may be wrong in the exact amount of time. Didn't write it down in any notes. Just had it all up here. And if you ever wanted to ask him anything, he could go and he could tell you the exact fact. But he's the same way with Metal Gear. I've never had to work with someone who required more trust because it's like you're going through it blind. And he assembled an incredible cast of people to pull off a fantastical game.
Now, when Troy says that Kojima's had this game in his head for 2 years, maybe longer, I'm not sure if he means that the game was in his head for 2 or more years before his departure from Konami, or if he's referring to the 2 or more years that have passed since Kojima established his new studio. From what Kojima said in the past, the idea behind Death Stranding is actually fairly new and not something he's had for a very long time. He apparently had several ideas at the front of his mind when he realized his time with Konami and Metal Gear was over, and from those, Kojima chose Death Stranding, as it was something he felt would both be best for the market while still being something he and his team would be enthusiastic about making. So perhaps what Troy is referring to is that after Kojima departed from Konami and designed Death Stranding in his head, he's carried that knowledge with him for all the years the game's been in development, way before Troy was brought in as a cast member, which I believe would have happened after the voice actor strike, which ended late last year. Either way, the bottom line is that Kojima seemingly knows this game, its story, its themes, everything like the back of his hand, being able to answer anything about the game for the actors with exactness without having to consult notes or anything, and apparently it was the same case with Phantom Pain. Troy then wrapped things up with a few final thoughts and bits of information about his involvement.
It's trippy, it's weird. I have no idea when it's coming out. I believe I'm finished shooting, so I think my role and everything, I believe Norman's finished as well, but I could be wrong. I just want to play it.
From what he's saying, it would seem as though performance capture and recording for this game is pretty far along. Troy himself is done with shooting, unless they bring him back in for a few extra scenes or to reshoot some stuff. And as he previously said, when it comes to his role, that was a 2-week-long endeavor. And he also seems to believe that Norman Reedus is done shooting, or at the very least, very close to being done. That could only mean that the game is pretty damn far along into development, and that it might be at a stage where Kojima and team are now putting the pieces together and fleshing everything out. Something that a lot of people are worried about is that Death Stranding will take many, many years to come out, that Kojima's hinted release window before the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and before Akira's 2019 setting was unrealistic. However, Kojima has reiterated time and again that, the holdup from the voice actor strike aside, the game's development has been going pretty smoothly and that it's still right on schedule. He assured this was still the case during Tokyo Game Show 2018 not that long ago, so we're still looking at what I can only surmise to be a late 2019 release window, maybe early 2020 at most. Furthermore, Kojima mentioned back in December 2017 that the people from Sony Interactive Entertainment told him that they hadn't seen anyone make a game of this scale at such a fast pace. Given Kojima started from literally nothing after his departure from Konami before finally establishing his own independent studio in December 2015, given it's only been about 3 years now since Kojima began conceptualizing the game, and even less time since he finally found a game engine to build Death Stranding on, I would say that the progress that's been made is pretty damn impressive. And the fact that Norman Reedus may already be finished with all of the game's performance capture only goes to further corroborate that the game's coming along quite nicely and on schedule. Hell, there's enough of the game there for Troy Baker to confidently say that it is absolutely huge in scale. I would imagine that Troy has seen bits and pieces of how the game is coming along if he can discuss its scale so adamantly. Very excited to see more of the game myself, and I get the sense that this year's upcoming Game Awards will play host to another Death Stranding presentation, be it a cinematic trailer or a gameplay showcase. I'm personally hoping for the latter, as we have already seen enough cinematic trailers to know how beautiful and bizarre the game is going to be visually. I think it's about time that people finally understood what kind of game Death Stranding is going to be at its core and come to terms with why this is a game they'll want to play rather than just look at. Until then though, we'll just have to make do with the vague hints that Troy Baker provided during Argentina Game Show 2018. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and theories are on the information and insight he shared in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.